Tari adjusted the microphone, cleared his throat, and spoke with pride. "We want to thank the man who gave us life. Our real dad, not the one who just paid the bills." The words hung in the air like smoke in a closed room. The gymnasium, filled with proud families and flashing cameras, suddenly felt smaller. It was graduation day, the reward for 15 years of scraped knees, late-night homework, and endless rides to school. Tari sat in the back row, his pressed shirt sticking to his skin under the heat, smiling even as his heart sank. He had raised those children, not just paid for them. But at that moment, every memory, the science fairs, the birthdays, the bedtime stories, turned to dust. Before we continue, please subscribe, like, and comment where you're watching from so you don't miss out on our next story. Mira smiled proudly at Aaron as he spoke, her tassels swinging with excitement. 3 rows ahead stood Dane, their biological father, the man who once pawned Myra's bike for fuel and disappeared for years. He grinned like a celebrity, soaking up a spotlight he hadn't earned. Lena, Tari's wife, didn't even turn around. Her face was frozen in a half-smile, like she was part of a play she couldn't walk out of. The applause rolled across the crowd, polite but uneasy. Tari stayed seated. He didn't shout, didn't cry. He simply stared at the stage as if carved from stone. When you raise 2 children from diapers to diplomas, Tari thought, it becomes more than love. It becomes identity. Every sleepless night, every sacrifice compounds into a kind of soul investment. And when that's burned down in public, you don't rage, you calcify. As Aaron grinned at Dane and Mira waved to the crowd, Tari looked up at a loose wire swaying above the basketball hoop. It was easier to watch that wire than meet Lena's eyes. Because if he looked at her, something inside him might break. After the ceremony, people gathered for photos on the gym steps. Lena wrapped her arms around the twins, smiling like she hadn't just watched her husband get humiliated in front of everyone. Dane stood beside them, flashing his crooked grin. "Wear it, Dad," Aaron said, tossing him the graduation cap. The crowd laughed, flashes went off, and Tari stood in the background, invisible. No one invited him into the photo. He just watched, quiet, hollow, forgotten. The kind of silence that doesn't make noise but still screams. Later, when the laughter faded, he approached Lena. "Need help packing up?" he asked. She sipped her drink and said, "Don't take it personally, Tari. They're just kids." Just kids. That night, the garage was still except for the hum of the old beer fridge. Tari sat alone on the fold-out chair, elbows on his knees, staring at the boxes labeled Aaron, Science Fair, and Mira, 3rd grade drawings. Each one held fragments of his years, the nights fixing projects, the mornings cheering at small victories. A dusty Ninja Turtles lunchbox caught his eye. He'd cleaned it 100 times back when Aaron called it his battle pack. 15 years of showing up. 15 years of being enough, until one sentence erased it. He stared at the old photo pinned above the workbench, the 4 of them at the waterfalls, matching shirts that read Team Harlow. He chuckled bitterly. It should have said wallet and accessories. He stood up, knees creaking, and climbed the stairs. Lena was in the kitchen, scraping cake off a plate. "You're being dramatic, Tari," she said without turning around. "It was just a moment." "Just a moment," he repeated quietly, walking past her. 15 years reduced to a moment. In the bedroom closet, he reached for the small safe hidden on the top shelf. 6 digits, click. Inside lay years of savings, carefully folded checks, each one made out for school fees, braces, emergencies. Hope disguised as paper. On top was Myra's college fund check. He held it for a long moment, thinking of the little girl who once begged him to read bedtime stories. Then, gently, he placed it back. The heartbreak wasn't loud. It was slow, like ice forming over a river. He closed the safe softly, without tears. That night, laughter filled the house. The smell of roasted chicken and cheap wine drifted through the air. Dane's obnoxious laugh boomed from the kitchen. Lena was beside him, glass in hand, giggling like a teenager. The twins were outside taking selfies in front of the congratulations banner Tari had hung that morning. He stood in the living room, near the empty space where their wedding photos used to hang. In their place were candles and a wooden sign that read, "This is us." The irony almost made him laugh. Aaron walked past him without a glance, grabbing another soda. Mira didn't even acknowledge him. On the gift table sat a white envelope with neat handwriting. "To Aaron, proud of you." It was from Tari. Aaron opened it, read the message, saw the check inside, and shrugged. "Thanks," he muttered, tossing it aside next to a half-eaten cupcake. Mira didn't even open hers. And that was the moment, not the speech, not the smiles, that moment of indifference, that finally freed him. Because sometimes freedom isn't walking away in anger. It's realizing no one expects you to stay. When the noise on the deck swelled again, Tari slipped down the hallway like a shadow. In the bedroom, he opened the closet and reached for the safe on the top shelf. 6 digits, click. He took the envelope this time, not a single check but all of them. Savings bonds, deposits, the final bonus he hadn't told anyone about. He set them in his briefcase, closed the latches, and sat at his desk. The laptop screen glowed pale blue. New bank. New account. New name. He moved the funds with steady hands, set up alerts, added 2-factor, changed passwords he had used for years because trust had made him lazy. The confirmations popped up one by one, quiet fireworks no one could see. He closed the laptop gently, put the briefcase under the bed, and exhaled. Then he returned to the backyard and stood by the string lights like nothing had happened. Lena laughed at something Dane said. Aaron compared sneakers with a friend. Mira filmed a story with glittering filters. Tari refilled the ice bucket. No performance. No anger. Just a man who understood that the only power anyone ever has is what he decides to keep. The next morning, he ironed a clean shirt and took a personal day. Instead of driving to the plant, he parked outside a brick building with spotless glass and polite air. The plaque read, Greer and Associates, Attorneys at Law. Mr. Greer had steel hair and a chess player stare. "You're sure?" he asked, tapping the file Tari slid across the desk. "I'm sure," Tari said. "It's not punishment. It's placement." The attorney nodded and began outlining a trust. Clear, protected, timed releases, tuition first, housing second, a cushion for food and books. "Beneficiary?" Greer asked. Tari's voice didn't waver. "Naya." He watched the name land on paper like a promise. There were forms to sign, clauses to initial, a bank liaison to call. Greer worked with elegant speed. "You've documented your contributions?" "Every receipt," Tari said. "Every transfer." The attorney leaned back, satisfied. "Then there's no case against you, only feelings." Tari almost smiled. Feelings had already ruled the graduation. Money would now rule the consequences. Naya was Lena's niece, quiet, serious, the kind of girl who stacked chairs after family gatherings while others filmed themselves dancing. She stocked shelves at the grocery store at night and scrubbed baseboards at the community center on weekends. Once, she had shyly mentioned loving animals. Vet school was a dream that shrank every time the bus was late and a shift was added. Tari dialed her number from the parking lot. She picked up breathless. "Uncle Tari? I'm on break. Everything okay?" "Question," he said softly. "You still want college?" She laughed like he had told a joke. "Sure. And a spaceship." "I can't promise the spaceship," he said, "but college, I can start that." Silence stretched like a held breath. "Why me?" she whispered. "Because you never asked," he said. "And you never looked away when help needed doing." He heard her exhale, small and real. "If this is a prank, it's mean." "It's not," he said. "Meet me after your shift. Bring a pen." That afternoon, the financial advisor adjusted his glasses and moved through screens like a careful surgeon. Funds were retitled under the trust. Access limited. Backup stored. No links to household accounts, the advisor said. Independent custodian. Annual statements to the trust address. Meanwhile, across town, the Harlow family group chat blipped cheerfully on the kitchen iPad, Myra's sage green sheets, Aaron's dual monitor setup, Lena's plan to donate wine glasses now that she would have her space back. Curtains, cords, candle holders. They mapped a future on top of an empty ledger, assuming gravity still worked the way it always had. Tari watched the last confirmation email settle into his inbox. "That's it," the advisor said. "Done." Tari nodded, stood, and shook his hand. "Thank you." Outside, he sat in his truck and let the silence run. Not victory. Not revenge. Just completion. A door gently pulled shut so another could open for someone who had never demanded it. The first crack arrived as a polite ding. Lena's laptop chimed with a message from Hudson State. "Deposit not received. Action required." She read it twice, then reached for her phone. Tari was in his truck unwrapping a plain turkey sandwich when her name flashed. He answered on the third ring. "You didn't send the deposit," she said, skipping hello. "Hudson. Aaron Storm. They're saying it bounced or something." Tari took a thoughtful bite, chewed, swallowed. "I'll look into it." "Look into it," she echoed. "It's probably a glitch," he said. The kitchen clock ticked on her end. "Tari, are you okay?" "Never better," he said, and ended the call. That evening, Mira folded towels and asked, "Is the money not there?" Lena waved it off. "It's fine. A mix-up. Your dad, stepdad," Mira corrected. "Automatic is breathing." On the couch, Aaron didn't look up from his phone. "He won't do anything." He cried during Finding Nemo. His laugh was careless. For the first time, it sounded hollow to Lena. Lena texted a white flag invitation. "Brunch Sunday. Just us. We need to talk." The farmhouse bistro smelled like coffee and buttered lies. Lena arrived in white linen, sunglasses perched like armor. "Hi, stranger," she said, grazing his cheek with a practiced kiss. Tari ordered black coffee. Lena ordered something complicated, and a mimosa. She stirred like a speech. "That email from Hudson, it threw me. Maybe we miscommunicated." She leaned in, palm warm on his hand. "Remember when you handled our taxes? I was such a mess. You pulled through. You always do." He watched the nostalgia float between them like perfume. "And the kids," she continued. "They're teenagers. They don't understand words the way adults do. The graduation thing, hashtags and impulse." Tari tilted his head. "And you?" She blinked. "What? Do you understand the impact?" For a heartbeat, her face faltered. Then the smile returned. "I just want us to be okay. You'll handle the deposit?" He set down his cup. "Of course," he said. She squeezed his hand, relieved. He let her. Later, he met Naya behind the community center, by the loading bay where a metal door hummed. She wore a faded polo and a ponytail that had lost the morning's war. "I brought a pen," she said, half smiling. He handed her an envelope thick with documents. Trust confirmation, tuition schedule, prepaid account, instructions written in clear lines. She skimmed, then stopped. "Tari, I don't have words." "You don't need words," he said. "You need time and books and a door that opens." On top, he had placed a note, because someone should know what effort looks like. She looked up, eyes bright without drama. She didn't cry, not then. She just nodded like a person receiving a tool, not a trophy. Across town, Aaron posted a photo with Dane behind the grill. "Big thanks to the man who made it happen. Hashtag family first." No mention of Tari. Not even a lie. Perfect, he thought. Illusions love applause. Reality doesn't need it. Orientation day arrived like a victory parade they forgot to invite him to. Mira posed with new sheets and fairy lights. Aaron packed sneakers with the tags still on. Lena took photos, captioned onto bigger things. Tari sat on his porch with hot coffee and the quiet company of birds. At 2:30, Lena called. He let it ring out. At 3:04, a text from Mira. "First in months. They're saying tuition wasn't paid. I'm literally at orientation. This is humiliating." Tari typed 3 words, "Talk to mom." He set the phone face down and watched a sparrow bully a blue jay off the feeder. Calls stacked into a little tower. The sky turned the soft color of old paper. He took another sip of coffee. Peace didn't feel like winning. It felt like not explaining. By late afternoon, Lena pounded on his door. He opened it calmly and stepped aside. "They said tuition never cleared," she snapped. Mira cried in the hallway. Aaron couldn't get a dorm key. Tough day, he said, walking to the counter. What did you do? Me? He slid a folded slip across the surface, a withdrawal confirmation dated the day after graduation. I thought I was just the guy who pays the bills. The sentence landed like a dropped plate.
Lena's voice shrank.
This is their future. I didn't just anything, he said softly. I planned, like I always do, quietly. We'll sue. You won't, he said. The account was mine. My contributions. My taxes. Every penny documented. Headlights washed across the window. The twins burst in. What the hell, Tari? Aaron blurted. They won't give me an ID. Tari turned to them, steady as stone. Sounds like a problem for your real dad. Myra's eyes filled. Why would you do this? After your speech, he said. I decided to stop paying. He held the front door open. Figured out. And for the first time, they had to. The message for the family barbecue came through the shared group chat. Harlow family cookout, Sunday at Aunt Laura's. Bring sides. Tari had no intention of attending, but when Lena confirmed her presence, he decided to go. Not to prove anything, but to watch what truth looked like in daylight. He arrived early, parked quietly, and sat near the fence with a glass of iced tea. Aunt Laura waved from the grill. Glad you made it, Tari. Haven't seen you since Easter. Been around, he said, nodding. By 3 o'clock, the yard buzzed with laughter and smoke. Kids chased sprinklers, and Dane strutted around in a backward cap, holding court like he hadn't vanished for half their lives. Mira and Aaron hovered near him, performing closeness for an audience. Lena appeared half an hour later, bright yellow sundress, fake laughter, and a glass of rose. Tari sipped his tea, invisible as ever. It started innocently enough. Uncle David asked Aaron how college was going. The boy froze, eyes darting to Lena. We're working through some things, she said too quickly. A cousin chimed in, asking Mira if she had picked her major. That was the crack. Lena's mask slipped. We would have if someone hadn't sabotaged everything we worked for, she snapped. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the grill went quiet. Aunt Laura blinked. Sabotaged. Lena pointed straight at Tari. He took it. Every cent. The college fund. Just emptied it after graduation. A hush swept across the yard. Every plastic fork paused midair. Dane frowned. Wait, what? Lena stormed to the center of the lawn, voice trembling. After everything we did for him, after all the years he called them his kids, he stole it. Tari didn't raise his voice. He simply lifted his glass and said, No stealing. Just stopped paying bills, like I was told. The stillness was suffocating. Aunt Laura shifted uncomfortably. Lena, weren't you the one who posted that graduation clip? The one where they thanked Dane. Lena's face drained. That was their idea. Someone muttered. Looked like you were clapping. Lena's hand trembled. I didn't mean it that way. He blindsided us. Tari's voice was calm as lake water. No blindsiding. Just decisions. Aaron's face flushed. It was a joke, okay? We didn't mean it that way. You said what you meant, Tari replied. A few relatives exchanged looks. Carl, no. Dane shifted, uncomfortable under the weight of reality. No one stepped forward to defend them. Lena's lip quivered. You're embarrassing me. Tari leaned back, crossing his legs. I haven't raised my voice once. She looked around for support, but every cousin and aunt suddenly discovered their drink fascinating. The silence became its own verdict. Even the children's laughter from the yard next door sounded like judgment. Tari stood, gave a polite nod to Aunt Laura, and said, Thanks for the invite. Always a pleasure. Then he walked away. Behind him, Lena stood shaking, clutching her cup as the story she built for years dissolved in front of her family. For the first time, the truth wasn't whispered. It was witnessed. It started as a small Facebook post. A grainy photo of Neice standing in her new dorm room, holding a box of books with a stunned, hopeful smile. The caption read, My daughter just got a second chance. Not because someone had to, but because someone chose to. Thank you, Tari. You owed her nothing, but you gave her everything. It was written by Naya's mom, who still typed with 2 fingers on an old Samsung. That post didn't just spread, it bloomed. Teachers, neighbors, old friends from church shared it. That's what real fatherhood looks like. I remember Tari at every school recital. The comments multiplied. For the first time, Tari's quiet years had a witness that wasn't family but community. Lena saw the post the next morning. It hollowed her. The photos of Naya's smile, the comments calling Tari the man with a real heart, they weren't about money. They were about recognition. She drove to Tari's workplace, still in her work blouse, makeup half finished, eyes red from crying. He was on break, sipping cheap coffee by the loading bay when he saw her car pull up the wrong way. Tari, she called, stumbling out of the car, mascara streaked. Please. He didn't move. She hurried closer. Can we talk? Just a minute. He turned away. They're your kids too, she pleaded. We made a mistake. We didn't mean it. He paused, hand on the door. You didn't mean it? He asked softly. Maybe that's the problem. Then he stepped inside. Badge clicked, door closed. Through the glass, Lena's reflection crumbled. She sank to the pavement, sobbing, whispering his name until the wind drowned her voice. That night, Tari returned to his apartment building. The hallway light flickered as always. He stepped out of the elevator and froze. Lena was kneeling by his door, purse spilled open, keys, wrappers, a half-empty bottle of anxiety pills rolling in slow circles. Tari, please, she cried, voice hoarse. Look at me. I'll fix it. I'll make them apologize. Just don't do this. A neighbor peeked out, then slowly shut their door. This wasn't love anymore. It was performance. Tari unlocked his door and paused. He met her eyes, not with anger, but the calm indifference of someone who finally understood his worth. Then he shut the door. The next day, he met Naya at the bank. The air inside was cool and thick with quiet jazz. She sat beside him, nervously smoothing the sleeve of a thrifted blazer, the tag still tucked inside. Mr. Harlow, the teller said. We're ready for the final signature. Tari smiled and slid the folder toward Naya. You sign, he said. It's yours. She hesitated. There's no catch. No catch, he said gently. You earned this. Her hands shook as she signed. The teller smiled. Lucky girl. Tari shook his head. Not lucky. Just someone who never forgot who showed up. The teller didn't understand, but Naya did. They stepped out into the late afternoon sun. The light turned gold, stretching long shadows across the parking lot. Naya hugged him tight. No words, just that trembling kind of hug people give once in a lifetime. Thank you, she whispered. Make it count, he said. She nodded, wiping her eyes, and got into her rideshare. Tari stood there until the car turned the corner. Then he exhaled, long and slow. He drove out of town, following the familiar road past his old street. The house hadn't changed much. Same cracked driveway, same brick, same garden gnome missing an ear. But there was a new sign now for sale. Boxes filled the garage. Mira dragged a suitcase. Aaron hauled a TV. And Lena sat on the porch, sunglasses hiding everything. She saw him. He saw her. Neither waved. Neither smiled. Tari didn't slow down. He just drove past the house where he had built 15 years of invisible effort. Every nail he'd hammered, every lunch he'd packed, every storm he'd shielded them from, it all passed in a blur through the car window. The laughter, the arguments, the quiet nights, they no longer belonged to him, and for the first time, that felt right. He had given more than love. He had given structure, routine, and security. Now they would learn the weight of living without those things. The wind pressed against the truck windows, soft and steady, like a final applause no one could hear. When the road curved and the house vanished behind a cluster of oak trees, Tari whispered to himself, that chapter's closed. And it really was. The world didn't end when he stopped showing up, it just got quieter. He didn't hate them. That's what surprised him most. There was no rage, no fire left to burn. Only a deep, clean stillness. Anger had been replaced by understanding, understanding that people only value what costs them something. For years, his love had been free, unconditional, dependable. To them, that made it disposable. So now, he was gone, and the cost of losing him would teach what his words never could. That night, he made a simple dinner, no wine, no ceremony, just rice and vegetables. He ate slowly, listening to the hum of the fridge, the tick of the clock, the sound of his own peace. Sometimes letting go isn't revenge. It's rest. A week later, he received a small white envelope in the mail. No return address. Inside was a photo, a Polaroid of Neice at her new dorm, smiling beside a small desk stacked with books and a mug that read "Do Good Anyway." On the back, she had written in neat handwriting, "First day. Thank you for seeing me." Tari placed the photo on the shelf beside his keys. He didn't frame it, he didn't need to. It wasn't proof of generosity. It was proof that something he did had landed where it was meant to. Outside, the city carried on as always. Cars honked. Kids played. Life didn't stop to applaud him. It simply moved forward like he was finally meant to. News traveled slowly in their small town. A few neighbors asked Lena what had happened with the house. She blamed the market, inflation, taxes, anything but truth. Eventually, she moved to her sister's spare room on the other side of town. Mira deferred her first semester, posting vague captions about rebuilding. Aaron picked up shifts at a local gaming cafe. Dane disappeared again, his big promises evaporating the moment things got hard. For once, Tari didn't follow their stories. He didn't check social media or scroll through updates. He had spent too long watching lives that refused to see him. Now, he focused on his own reflection, the one that stared back at him in the quiet of his apartment each morning, no longer angry, no longer waiting to be seen. He took up walking. Every morning before sunrise, he circled the neighborhood, nodding to shop owners setting out bread and old men sweeping their porches. One morning, he passed a small bookstore he had never noticed before. A handwritten sign in the window said "Help Wanted, Part-Time." He stepped inside. The bell over the door chimed softly, and the air smelled of paper and dust. The owner, an elderly woman with gray braids, looked up from the counter. "You like books?" she asked. "I like quiet places," he said. She smiled. "Same thing." By the end of the week, he was unpacking boxes of new arrivals and sweeping aisles. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about motion, moving forward, even slowly, but without looking back. Every now and then, a familiar ache nudged his chest, like when he saw a father helping a kid ride a bike or a family laughing over pancakes at the cafe across the street. But it didn't sting anymore. It was memory, not wound. He could remember the good without living inside it. One rainy evening, while closing up the shop, the old owner said, "You seem lighter these days." Tari smiled. "I think I just stopped expecting people to understand my effort." She nodded knowingly. That's when peace starts, when you stop needing witnesses. He thought of Neice, of her quiet gratitude, and realized she had been his only witness that truly mattered. Months passed. The leaves turned gold, then fell, carpeting the streets in soft rustle. Tari grew into his solitude like it was a well-tailored suit. He read more, cooked more, even started volunteering at the animal shelter where Neice's college class sometimes trained. She would wave when she saw him. No big scenes, just a smile that said thank you again without words. One afternoon, she introduced him to a small brown puppy named Clover. "She needs someone patient," Neice said. "You'd be perfect." Tari hesitated, then crouched. The puppy licked his fingers and wagged her tail. "Guess we both needed someone patient," he said. And just like that, he went home with a leash and a heartbeat waiting to follow him. Clover became his quiet companion. She followed him through the bookstore in the mornings, napped on his feet during evenings, and sat beside him on the porch as he watched the sun dip behind the rooftops. Sometimes, neighbors waved. A few even said, "Glad to see you," smiling again. He would nod, not to confirm happiness, but to acknowledge peace. One night, Neice called. "We got our exam results," she said, voice trembling with joy. "I passed everything." I'm officially in the veterinary program. Tari grinned. You did it.
No, she said.
We did it. He chuckled. You earned it, Naya. I just opened the door. And that's everything, she whispered. After hanging up, he sat in the dim light with Clover resting her head on his knee. The city outside buzzed faintly, a distant hum of lives crossing, colliding, carrying on. Tari thought about how endings weren't always loud. They were often quiet, like a door closing softly behind you after you've finally stepped out of a burning house. What hurt most wasn't betrayal, but how calmly he had let go. Because sometimes the deepest strength lives in silence, in the simple act of walking away without a single explanation. People who take you for granted never expect you to stop showing up. But when you do, that's when they finally feel the cost. Winter came with a soft hush. The bookstore smelled of cinnamon candles and fresh bindings, and Tari had started helping the owner host small evening readings. Sometimes, he would sit quietly at the back, listening to people share poems about healing and forgiveness. Their words weren't his, but they resonated, each one stitching a small piece of calm into his chest. After one session, an older man stopped him by the door. You know, he said, the hardest part of forgiveness is realizing you might never get an apology. Tari smiled faintly. Then maybe peace starts when you stop waiting for one. The man patted his shoulder and walked out into the cold. Tari stayed a while longer, hands in his pockets, watching the snow fall through the window like quiet confetti for a life rebuilt. Lena tried calling again around Christmas. Her message was long, almost rambling. She said the twins were working part-time, that things were getting better, and that maybe they could meet for coffee, just to talk. Tari listened once, then deleted it. Not out of cruelty, out of closure. He had said all he needed to the world through action. Still, on Christmas morning, he left a card in Naya's mailbox. Inside, a single line, keep choosing kindness, even when it costs you. She replied that evening with a photo of her dorm Christmas tree, a few ornaments, a paper star, Clover's picture hanging near the top. Beneath it, she wrote, Lesson learned. Tari smiled. That was enough. By spring, word spread that Lena had sold the old house and moved out of town. Someone new painted the walls, tore down the banner hooks, and filled the garden with tulips. Tari drove by one morning on his way to deliver donated books to a school library. He didn't stop. He didn't need to. The house looked smaller than he remembered, like it had lost its authority over his memories. Clover barked softly in the passenger seat, tail thumping the upholstery. Yeah, Tari murmured. We're not turning back. The road ahead shimmered under the sunrise, the kind that hinted at fresh beginnings without promising anything too loudly. He liked that. Sometimes he still thought of Aaron and Mira. He wondered if they understood yet what it meant to build something real. He hoped so. He didn't wish them harm, he wished them growth. Because one day, they would have their own children, and maybe then they'd realize that love isn't a guarantee. It's a choice repeated every day, in silence, without applause. He imagined them remembering his face during those small moments, when bills came due, when a child needed help with homework, when patience felt impossible. If that memory made them pause, even once, it would be enough. You don't always need to be remembered kindly. Sometimes it's enough to be remembered truthfully. One evening, after closing the shop, Tari walked along the riverside trail, where the streetlights hummed softly. The town was quiet except for the water's steady whisper against the rocks. Clover trotted beside him, leash loose, tail wagging with lazy rhythm. Across the bridge, a couple argued about directions, their laughter echoing off the railings. Life went on messy, loud, ordinary. Tari realized that peace wasn't the absence of pain but the ability to hold it without letting it define you. He leaned on the railing, watching the reflection of city lights tremble on the water, and whispered, "It's okay." The wind carried the words away like a secret that didn't need keeping. Months later, the bookstore owner retired and handed him the keys. "You kept the place alive," she said simply. Hira named it Second Chapter Books. Not flashy, not poetic, just honest. On opening day, Naya stopped by wearing her scrubs and a wide grin. "Vet tech now," she said, holding up her ID badge. "Next stop, DV." Tari laughed. "Told you so."
She pointed at the shop sign.
"Perfect name."
"Feels right," he said.
"New stories deserve their space." They took a photo together under the awning, no filters, no crowd, just two people standing in the quiet proof that rebuilding was possible. That evening, as the sun slipped behind the buildings, Tari sat by the window with Clover asleep at his feet. The shelves were lined with stories of loss, love, and redemption, each one a mirror of lives finding their way back to light. He thought about the journey that had brought him here, every heartbreak disguised as a lesson, every goodbye that opened another door. The world outside glowed amber and calm. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a background character in someone else's story. He was the author now, writing quietly, deliberately, one small act of peace at a time. One Saturday afternoon, Naya organized a reading for local students. The shop was packed, laughter spilling between the aisles. She stood beside Tari and said, "You should tell your story one day." He chuckled. "People prefer happy endings. But this is one," she said gently. "You just found yours differently." Her words landed like truth does, soft but heavy. He looked around at the shelves, at Clover napping near the door, at the faces of people sharing warmth he once thought he'd lost. "Maybe you're right," he said. "Maybe this is the ending that finally feels like a beginning." When night fell, Tari closed the shop and walked outside. The town lights blinked in the distance, and a breeze rustled the street banners. He thought of everything that had been said, unsaid, and learned. The world didn't owe him closure. He had written his own. As he locked the door and turned toward home, Clover trotting beside him, he whispered a quiet goodbye, not to the people who left, but to the man who once waited for them. Freedom, he realized, isn't about leaving others behind. It's about returning to yourself. And in that stillness, with every step into the cool evening air, he finally felt whole.